the post-lunch session of today's workshop. Now our topic is randomness in cellular automata. Professor Kamalika Bhattacharjee will give her talk. Yesterday she has delivered two talks on reversibility, semi-reversibility and reachability tree. Now it's over to you.
Please don't tell me I'm a professor. Just
Now
okay,
you are professor of NITCC.
okay. Anyway, I just feel strange to hear something like this. Still feels strange. Okay. Anyway, okay. Let's start. Can you see my slides?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. So let us start today's session. So in the morning we had a wonderful session with Professor Ramanujam Jam, and he probably has made all of you totally aware of the need of randomness or the role of random number generator in particular in security for some all kind of applications. So here we'll be discussing about the randomness in cellular automata and how we can apply it for pseudo-random number generation. So we can start with just let us roll the dice. Do you think you can guess the outcome of this dice? How many of you think you can? There is some way to guess the outcome of this unbiased dice. Let us say that this is unbiased. Okay, I want to get some response. Anyone who think that you can guess the outcome of this any unbiased dice? Well, okay. So
Yeah, not possible. So it is rolling.
yeah, it's rolling, but if it stops somewhere, then is it possible if we just roll it once and can you predict that what will be the outcome of dice? Is it possible, even theoretically? Okay,
No.
so
Can you please see the chat box? Validation has written not really.
okay, there are if you do some kind of Google search, you can see that there are many devices developed nowadays which will predict almost with let's say 99% guarantee that whatever it is predicting that will be true. That is taking care of the movement at every angle, the friction, the amount of gravity involved, everything taken into consideration. It can predict whatever will be the outcome. So in that case, we can say that okay, in general, it is not random, but if we don't know, we don't have this much of techniques involved, then we can say that okay, it is random. So what in general is random? Random is what? If each possible outcome has equal chance of getting selected. So if we just roll the dice, each of the outcomes would be equally probable. Now, obviously, here we are considering unbiased thing. And normally in generic term, we say random when we don't know or there is some lack of knowledge on getting the answer. Then we use the term random. So here you can think like if we don't know the strict procedure of generating the correct outcome of this rolling dice, then we can say it is random. And if we already know what will be the other things involved to make this fall of dice to a particular uh, on the particular phase, then we can say okay, this in that case it will not be random. But in general, the term random is associated with unpredictable. That means we should not be able to guess what will be the next outcome. Now let us take this bit sequence. Is it random? Can you say that what will be the next, if you think of this Bitcoin is bit sequence is generated by just tossing of an unbiased coin, then can you say that what will be the outcome next? Is it head or tail? Whether it is 0 or 1? So obviously, in general, it should not be possible. So it might look to you that it is random. Now look at these images. These are some beautiful patterns, pictures. You can see there are so many beautiful patterns involved in it. Now, are they random? Well, you might think that some of them are patterns, so these are not random. Maybe the second picture you can think of like it is random. So, in general, the question comes is there anything truly random? This is obviously a philosophical debate. So, there are two classes of people normally who thinks that yes, there is something called truly random, and another group of people is there who says that no, there is nothing random, it is just chaos. So I belong to the same class. I don't think there is anything random at all. Might be you are agreeing with me, and you might be belonging to the same class also, on the first class also. Okay, so let us take what is random, what is chaos in this case. Chaos is the property of dynamical system. Chaos, specifically deterministic chaos, you can think of. So here, this apparent random behavior, behind that there is something which is totally deterministic. Now, this totally deterministic conditions also giving rise to the disorder and irregularities. But the point is this, from a deterministic point of start, how it can come to a totally disorder and irregular situation, as it has to be highly sensitive to the initial conditions. So chaos means high sensitivity to initial conditions, and it will be governed by some deterministic laws. So chaos theory tells that nothing is truly random. Everything is governed by some deterministic laws, and as there are even tiny changes in the initial condition, this can be catastrophic in creating some huge difference in the outcome. So this property is popularly known as butterfly effect, that calls that a small change in one state can result in large differences in a later state. For example, if a tiny butterfly is, suppose it is flapping of wings in my room in Trichy, and it can create maybe a cyclone in Kolkata, in IST Shibpur. So it is called butterfly effect. Now, these patterns, just like the patterns I was showing you before, all these patterns are generated by chaotic systems. So you can see that some of the patterns are from nature itself, some are artificial. All these are patterns generated by chaotic systems. But chaos says that in long term it will be unpredictable. What about randomness? We want unpredictable at each term. But will it guarantee that if a system is unpredictable in long term, it will also be unpredictable in the smaller terms, maybe on the next step itself? It doesn't guarantee it, right? For example, chaos also generates patterns like this. These are called fractals. You can see it is so similar. It can easily guess what will be the next step. So this is not a random. However, if we take a bit sequence like this, you can say that it is random. Actually, this is pseudo-random. I have taken this bit sequence from This is basically a pseudorandom number generator. We will be discussing this pseudorandomness in some later stage. So what we need here is short-term unpredictability also, not only the long-term unpredictability. Obviously, it has to be long-term unpredictable, but it has to be unpredictable in short-term also. So source, that's why the study of the source of randomness in physical system was started, and the initiator was almost with the cellular automata itself, and it was done by Stephen Wolfram. He said that cellular automata can be a physical system which is a good source of randomness. Now, why cellular automata is of such an interest? Because first is it can be thought of. I'm writing here as macroscopic. You think of microscopic also. So at least it is a macroscopic model of nature, and the signature property is there is so much of complexity arising in the cellular automata that is driven from a simple rule, mostly deterministic one if we thought about classical cellular automata, where there is local interaction and computation and all the cells are working parallel. So massive parallelism is there. And this simple system can generate all kind of complex behavior. You have already seen in the previous 2 days that how much complexity it can arise. So these are some examples. So first, many of them are from ECA itself, that is elementary CS. You might recognize some of them. The second one is Rule 30, third one is Rule 45, the fourth one is some probabilistic CA. So you can see that this all these figures, they look almost random, like there is almost no specific pattern involved in it. Also, another property of CA that is of interest to us is its behavior is always consistent. As we are starting with the deterministic system, deterministic rule, whenever we are giving the same configuration to the rule, we know the next configuration what it will be. It is not going to change. So study of CA can be a good approximation of the randomness generated by the physical system which are locally interactive in nature. Now, another property of CA that is of interest to us is it can be chaotic as well. So what does it mean? Chaotic means, as you have understood, that we can start with the tiny perturbation, and that perturbation will be, in the long run, it will be creating some kind of havoc effect. So here this is Rule 30. So here we are starting with simply one black cell. You can think of all white cells are zeros, and only one bit information is added here. It is a stable system. We are adding one bit of noise there, and what it is creating? So it is just, this is propagating through the edges, through the left and right directions, and it is moving. You can see with this one bit how much of difference it is created in the long run. And even if this is, even if you are thinking about that there is some kind of triangles inside, we can think like these are some patterns. You can just avoid it using some kind of window. Let us take this middle bits. Say we are taking only one bit window. Then only the middle cell values we are collecting. So out of this much of information, we are extracting only the middle bit for each of the iterations or each of the configurations, and that bit sequences we are taking as the output. Now, you can look for Stephen Wolfram's sites. There he has given like I think it is $30,000 US prize for proving 3 properties of Rule 30 as random source of randomness. That is, this middle bit sequence, it is not periodic, whether there is a proof that it is periodic or not, whether the number of zeros and ones in this middle bit sequence, it is almost equal or not. Some 3 properties are there which are related to the randomness of this simple rule, rule 30. Rule 30, you already know how simple it is. It is an element, it is an elementary CA, and it can be so much powerful as source of randomness. And you will be seeing later that if you just use this rule 30 itself as a pseudo-random number generator, then also how powerful it can be. So this is the property of CA that has made it an ideal source of randomness for physical systems. Now, this CA is chaotic. Obviously, this answer to this question that can any chaotic CA be good source of randomness? This might not be true, because chaotic system has some other properties also. Here we are seeing one chaotic CA for which we are finding that this is actually very beautiful as source of randomness. But will any chaotic CA will do the same thing? Okay, we'll see. So what we need for being a good source of randomness, the CA has to be unpredictable. That is, the future configurations should not be predictable from the information about the present configuration. Now, to ensure this, there are certain properties the CA need to maintain. First is divergent. Divergent is also a property of chaos. That means if you start at a similar point, then if just a little bit of change you are adding, then the two ways should be diverged. Just like in the figure itself, you have seen that one bit of noise you are adding, and that information is totally, it is creating so much of havoc. So the if it was a stagnant all zero and all zero with one bit of information, one bit of noise inside, these two configurations are so similar. Only one bit change is there. But for that, after some certain time steps, the resultant configurations will be totally different. So this is the property of divergence. Similarly, the next property is autoplectic. What is autoplectic? That means the feature extractions, that is, if you need to collect information about the outcome, that should require more sophisticated computation than the evaluation. If you just evolve it, the time to evolve and get back to the result, that is relatively simpler than if you just try to collect the configuration and from that configuration you try to extract what will be the next configuration. This is the property called autoplectic. Third is chaotic. Chaotic, we were already discussing about. There is tiny perturbation in the initial configuration. It should greatly affect the future configurations. And the fourth property is surjective. Surjective, we were already discussing about surjectivity in the last day's lectures. So surjectivity is also very important. It gives you the probable space which can be covered. It will be the whole space. That is, all configurations are reachable from some initial configurations. All these four properties are important to be unpredictable. But the problem is, these properties are of chaos, and these are defined over infinite lattice size. So if we take the classical definition of CA, where CA is defined over infinite lattice size, these properties can be satisfied if we take the chaotic size. But we are interested in the finite lattice sizes only, because if we are going to implement our CA for any real life application, we need finite CA. So many of the properties will be disappearing. But still, as a borderline, we choose the chaotic CAs, which doesn't have any affinity towards any particular state for our applications. So, but we need we need to ensure that the other shortcomings or problems of chaos should not be there. One such shortcoming you have seen already, that is the self-similarity or fractals. So chaotic CA kind might have a tendency to generate self-similar patterns, just like you can see the space-time diagram of rule 90. Here you can see if we start with similar to the rule 30, if we start at 1 bit of information, it will be this information will be traveling towards both the directions, but in the space-time diagram there are some beautiful patterns generated. These patterns, this is basically self-similar patterns. You can take any part of it, and if you just magnify it, it will be indistinguishable from the original pattern. So this is called self-similarity property, and it is going to be symmetrical and invariant. So if we know only one part of the this pattern, we can guess about what will be the idea about the whole pattern, because it is going to be self-similar only. So this is not this is not going to be beneficial for our random system. We don't want such kind of CA, so we have to somehow avoid CAs which are having self-similarity. Similarly, another property of chaotic CA has, any chaotic system has tendency to self-organize. Like it is, after some time it is going to be stable in some way. It has to be self-organized into the most stable system. So in case of CA, this gives you the figures known as these triangles, the equilateral triangles. Now, when these equilateral triangles will come, if you take the numbers out of these equilateral triangles, you can easily guess what will be the next value. So we are not interested in getting such kind of triangles. So when it is generated, if there are consecutive number of cells which are having same value, then if our CA is at maximum, what it can do, it can just corrupt the configuration from both sides. So if it is corrupting from both sides at maximum, it will be like, it will be creating some kind of triangles. So this will give you equilateral triangles, as it can be corrupted using the terminal cells only. So our target will be, we are not going to use such equilateral triangles. We should be using CA which has no symmetry and triangles. But better said than done. It is not going to be easy. So let us see how far we can go to avoid this kind of shortcomings of chaotic CAs. So one such property which we can ensure is named as asymmetric configuration space. This asymmetric configuration space is what we want to impose restriction on our CA, that it has no self-similar or regular pattern, it has no equilateral triangles, and also it should not have any kind of large triangles. So this is the property that we want to ensure. But how? Okay, we have some kind of solution over it. First is, we want to break the symmetry. To break the symmetry, what we need? We need asymmetric information flow. In the previous cases, we have seen that this is symmetrical, the information flow in both sides. From one position, it is flowing to both the direction in the same pace, so it is becoming totally symmetrical. Now, our first target will be to break the symmetry. Then what to do? Then it is, we want to break the triangles. To break the triangles, what we need? We need that there should not be any large sequence of consecutive cells having same next state value. Another thing, we want to ensure that we want to make the assignment in the RMT itself unassuming. So this is called asymmetrical next state value assignments to RMT. This will make sure that if someone just are observing the space-time diagram also, that then also it will be complicated or difficult for the observer to get back to the rule. What rule was used to generate the pattern? Then the third point is, just like I was saying, we want to avoid the triangles. To avoid the triangle, we want to make sure that there is no large subsequence of self-replicating RMTs or RMTs with same nested value. If it is self-replicating, that means whatever value it was having, it will replicate the same value in the next configuration. So in that case, it will be there is this chance of getting these triangle-like patterns, because the RMTs inside of this subsequence is not going to change. Only the terminal cells can be changed. So we want to avoid this kind of situation. This will give us the liberty from the triangles itself. And some additional properties also you want to make we want to restrict on the CS. What are they? First is we want to make sure that our rule itself is balanced. This is very basic property. If the rule is not balanced, that means what will happen? There will be some configurations which are which have more probability of getting generated because the rule has affinity towards a particular state. So this is not welcome for being a good source of randomness, because in that case that configuration has more probability of getting guessed. So we want to avoid that. Similarly, we want flow of information. That is, this flow of information, how we can measure it? It is the dependency of each cell on its neighbors. I already mentioned that we need asymmetric flow of information. So that is flow of information on left side and the right side, both direction there is some kind of flow of information. How to measure the flow of information in left direction? We'll be observing the sibling RMT set. Sibling RMT set means the RMTs that were generated together. So in that case, just like look at this figure. Here, this RMTs are sibling RMTs. That means only the last cell values are different. So if they are different, and when they are different, we are having the next state values also as different. That means there is difference. This information is somehow traveling towards this side. So we get here one kind of information flow. Similarly, for right direction also, you can see through the equivalent RMT set where the left side cells, these were having some different kind of information, and this information can be traversed to the middle cell. So there is flow of information in the right direction. Another property we want is large cycle length. Large cycle length is very important, because if it is a small length, then it is easily predictable, because you can just store all the information of all the configuration in the cycle, and then we can easily guess what is going to be the next. So this large cycle length also ensures that the configuration space is not partitioned into a more number of cycles. So to get large cycle length, we have to make sure that our configuration space has less number of partitioning. And we want non-linear CAs, because linear CAs are like, as the Zord function is going to be used in linear CA, it is very easy to predict. Now, how we can synthesize such kind of CA rules, or how we can select such CA rules? Because if you go for any M, any D, there are too many number of CAs possible with that particular M or D. So we have to somehow find some strategy to select some rules which will be satisfying these criteria. One such strategy is we want to impose that there is maximum information flow on one side and asymmetric information flow on the other side. So that means here we will be getting this symmetry in the information flow that will be broken here. I have taken rule of strategy 2. You can take any other strategy also. That is, here I have imposed that the sibling identity sets are always balanced. So whenever there is some change in the sibling identities, this information will always be traversed to the middle cell. But for the equivalent identity set, I am taking asymmetric information flow. So for sibling identity set, there is maximum flow on the left side. From the sibling identities, this information is flowing to the left side. Whereas for equivalent identity set, I want to make sure that there is neither all the equivalent identities having same nested value or all are different. If all are having same nested value, then also it is going to be predictable. If all are going to have different nested value, then first thing is this maximum information flow will be there, so it will not be asymmetric. And also somehow you can predict, like it is assumable, it is not going to be non-deterministic. So this will ensure that asymmetric information flow is on the right side and no equilateral triangle is generated. Third is, we want to make sure that if we apply this strategy over the equivalent identity set, we can make sure that our equivalent identity sets behavior, this will be non-deterministic for an unassuming observer. So this is our strategy. This is the first strategy. Second strategy is to imply this asymmetric configuration space, but we have some problem. Asymmetric configuration space means we want to make sure that there is no large subsequence of configuration or sub-configuration which is having same nested value or same self-replicating identities are there inside it. But given any arbitrary configuration, whether such configuration can be reached in the evolution of the CA, this problem reduces to the reachability problem, that is whether one configuration is reachable from another configuration or not. This is a piece-based complete problem. So it is not easy to solve. We can't go in directly through that way. So we use some other techniques. We use the primary identity sets. What is this primary identity sets? This is actually nothing but the cycles, the elementary cycles of the Debrugian graph. So if you just recall yesterday's lecture, in the Debrugian graph, there were some cycles. All those cycles were representing some configurations. So if we just take any complex cycle, just for example, I have one figure. If this is for ECS, here we can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4, 5 and 6. Total 6 cycles are there. Now we can traverse this graph through one cycle or maybe through a number of cycles. So if you traverse through number of cycles, this will be composed of some simpler cycles. So that means you'll be getting some configurations which are just composed of some smaller configurations. So we use this, the RMTs corresponding to the elementary cycles as the primary RMT sets. So for this particular ECS, we have only 6 primary RMT sets, 0 for RMT 0, 7 this for this 1, 1, 1, then 2, 5 for this cycle, then 1, 2, 4 this 1, then 2, then 4 this cycle, 5, 3, 6 this is this cycle, 5, 3, 6, and the outer cycle this is 1, 3, 1, 3, 6, 4. Only 6 cycles are there. Now this primary identity sets, they can be helpful for us to implement this asymmetric configuration space. How to do that? We want to make sure that the distribution of nested values of the RMTs are asymmetric. How we can do that? we want to as the RMTs of primary RMT set that can be involved in generating the basic cycles, basic sub configurations of any configuration. We want to make sure that all the RMTs of a primary RMT set are not going to have the same value. This will make this will give you the scope of breaking the any sub configuration into smaller parts, as that no sub configuration is having all RMTs with same value. But we have to check whether after doing this we are able to avoid the trivial configuration in the configuration space. That is, suppose all 0, all 1, all 2, such kind of configuration, if we are somehow going to reach to that configuration, that means everything is gone. So we should not be, after doing this, we should not be going towards that attractor. We have to avoid that attractor. That is very easy to check. We can check whether these trivial configurations are non-visible or not. Second thing, we want to make sure that all RMTs of the primary RMT set, that those are not self-replicating. First is, we are making the RMTs of the primary RMT set not having the same next state value. Now, although they are not having the same next state value, they can have the next state value as whatever was their present state value. In that case, they will be self-replicating. That means they will be creating some kind of fixed point attractor. That also we don't want. So we want to make sure that the RMTs of one set is not, all of them are not self-replicating. And we can also check that there exists any non-trivial fixed point attractor in the CA or not. This is also very easy to check. We can check this and make sure that our just assignment of RMTs are actually appropriate or not. Then another thing, if we have a large primary RMT set, then what we can do is we want to give the consecutive RMTs in RMT sequence with same nested value with a limit. Say we are fixing, say only 2 RMTs in RMT sequence can be given the same nested value. After that, we will be giving some other value. We are purposefully breaking the chance that consecutive RMTs in a sub configuration can be having same nested value. This will forcefully allow us to implement asymmetric configuration space. So these are the techniques which will make sure that our CAs are having those properties. Those are important to be good source of randomness. Now, what to do with these CAs? We can use these CAs to apply as PRNGs, pseudo-random number generators. What are pseudo-random number generators? So, pseudo-random number generator, as Jam was also discussing, those are random. Those will appear as random, but they can be reproduced on demand. So, there is some background algorithm, some deterministic system is there, which is developing some kind of background algorithm. Based on the algorithm, you are generating some numbers. But if you don't know the algorithm and the seed, maybe you know only one thing, we don't know the other, then to any observer, this number should be happening as it is random number. So these numbers are called pseudo-random numbers. You can look at the definition. Here in the definition, we have 5 tuples. One is the finite set of states, the states on which the random number generator is moving through. Then the probability distribution. Normally we take uniform probability distribution, but you can take another distribution also. Then the transition function from one state to another. Then the output space and the output function. Now, generator will work based upon the seed. You have to give some seed, which you can generate on the basis of your probability distribution function, and first number will be given by the output generating function, that is G. and at each step, the state of the pre-RNG, this will be determined by this state transition function, and output is determined by this output function. These outputs we call it as pseudo-random numbers, and the sequence of output we call it as pseudo-random sequence. So you can understand that there is some period. Period means after how many number of times you can get back to the seat. So our expectation is we should not be able to predict the whole predict the next number in the sequence. Now if our period is very small, obviously you can store all the numbers and can easily detect whatever is going to come next. So period of the PRNG has to be large. This is the first property of a good pseudo-random number generator. So there are some other properties also. Uniformity. Uniformity means what? The distribution of the numbers should be uniform. Then independence. Independence means they should not be the numbers which are generated in the sequence. They should be totally uncorrelated. From one number you should not get any kind of correlation to guess about the next number. Then reproducibility. Reproducibility is very important for the pseudo-randomness. That's why pseudo-randomness is so popular, because for most of the applications in computing, you need to generate the same set of numbers. You need to test with the same set of numbers. For example, in the keys also, like in security also, sometimes you need to generate the same set of keys. So this reproducibility means given the same seed, the same sequence of numbers will be generated. Consistency. Consistency means this sequence generated by different seeds, they should also be these properties, all the properties we are discussing, that should be applicable whether the seed is same or not. Even if you vary the seed, then also this property should be applicable. Then disjoint subsequences, that is whatever sequence you are generated by any seed, all these sequences should not be related. All these should be totally uncorrelated. Permutations. Permutations means all possible permutations of the number should be generated, should be equally probable. Then portability is there. Portability means you should be able to use your generator in any platform, and it has to be efficient also. That is, just constructing your random number should not be taking much more time and resources. It should be just like Jam was saying, in a blink of eye, you should be able to generate thousands of numbers. Then coverage. Coverage means your pseudo-random number generator should be covering almost all possible output space. Spectral characteristics, it means one number, that is, if you just plot the numbers generated by a sequence, some number should not be having more frequency of getting generated by rather than the other numbers. That means that for that it will be a biased case. So you will be, for some number, they have more chance of getting selected, so more chance of, if someone is guessing that number, so for that adversary, more chances there that he or she will be able to predict it correctly. Then cryptographically secure. This is like, it is, all of you know, we are interested to make the system cryptographically secure, but the problem is most of the pseudo-random number generators are not cryptographically secure. This is very hard to achieve. There are some classes of PRNG existing in literature. One of the oldest is linear congruential generator, or known as LCGs. In LCG, it is given by a simple function like this, a modular function, where depending upon the value of C and A and x0 will be the seed, you will be able to generate the next number. Then there is linear feedback shift register, where linear feedback shift register is used. Here there is not necessarily a locally feedback connection. Their feedback can be placed anywhere in the sequence, and this linear feedback shift register or LFSR based methods are very popular in it. So this particular class of PRNGs has some beautiful properties which are and they're easily implementable on hardware also. That's why LFSR is very popular as pseudo-random number generators. Then we have CA-based random number generators also. Let us look at the situation currently with all the random number generators. This is the sequence of generators, all possible, all important generators developed in the literature. Some LCG, some are LFSR based, some are CA based. So these are a list. Now, how to check whether the random number generators are random enough or not? There are some existing tests. Those are called blind test or statistical test. Those some popular test beds I have written here. One is Diehard. Diehard is one of the oldest known battery of tests. It contains only 15 tests. Then TestU01. TestU01 contains several libraries of tests. Here I have chosen Battery Rabbit. This is a very small battery of tests. It is containing only 25 tests, but these 25 tests are very important tests. Then we have NIST. NIST is specifically designed for cryptographic purposes. We will see that even though some test will, some generator will pass NIST, that doesn't mean that it will be satisfying the cryptographic properties. So how does this test work? It will simply test the probability that your given sequence of numbers are not random. So whether, and that using some functions, it will calculate the probability value of it. That value is called p-value. This p-value has to be inside some range. For each of the test bed, there is some particular range. If it is not falling inside that range, that test bed will declare that the given sequence is not random enough. So by using this battery of tests, you can guess what is how much non-randomness is there in your generated sequence. There are some graphical tests also. Graphical test means you can visualize what is the behavior of your random number generator. One easy test is lattice test, where you just take pair of your generated numbers, plot them into a 2D plot, and then you can see whether there is some kind of patterns inside those tests or those numbers or not. Similarly, you can plot into 3D and you can see whether there is some kind of cluster or some kind of other kind of patterns inside them. It will be easy to detect whether the numbers are having some kind of correlation or not. Then another important test is there, that is also graphical test that we have been using already, that is space-time diagram. Space-time diagram, it is basically used for CA, but we can use it for random number generation also. We can plot the numbers generated in one time step. Each of the numbers will be plotted, and then you can see, you can visualize if there is some pattern or not. For example, you can see here all these numbers. You have plotted some of the most popular random number generators with the fixed seed. We have started with 7, and for all of them you can see there are some patterns. So although maybe many of the test beds will declare them as non-random or random enough, doesn't matter, you can see that there are some patterns. Some of them are having clusters of zeros together, cluster of ones together. So if you plot using space-time diagram, it is more easy to visualize. So this is the table of all these generators using all these test bed. So you can see that here this rule 30 So the first rank holder is SFMT, a variation of machine twister having 64-bit. This is right now it is the best performing random number generator. Next is another version of SFMT, that is the 32-bit version, that is also almost at par with it. And then third position comes our Rule 30. So although Rule 30, although it is such a simple system, whereas SFMT is machine twister, it is 19937. That is the 2 to the power 19937 minus 1. That is the length of the period there. And that means you to use it as a PRNG, you have to take at least LFSR of that size, like 19937. That is too big. And LFSR means there will be too many feedback loops. The characteristic polynomial is going to be very difficult. Still, the simple system like Rule 30 can also be a good random number generator if it is used. So this is the existing rank of the PRNG. Now we want to see if we can develop some PRNGs which is at least at par with the elite group of PRNGs, just like the SFMTs. Our observation is if we increment the number of states, just like if we go from 2 to 3, there is some improvement in the randomness quality. So we take the scheme by improving the randomness while increasing the D, and we take D as 10, that is the decimal CS. But the problem here is the rule space is huge. It is 10 to the power 1000. That is too big for any exhaustive testing. So we take some ready strategies and we select some CS which are satisfying the properties we have already discussed. And let us see how random this locally interactive system using this 10-state CS can be. So our scheme is we are going to use window of length W. Just like in Rule 30, Wolfram has taken window of length 1, we are going to take window of variable length, and this window can be chosen as per the requirement of the user also. Just like you can think of like here we are taking a window of size 5 from n number of cells. So on this consecutive bits will be our output for each time step. Here we have the two schemes. One is for decimal numbers, another is for binary numbers, depending on the value of the window given by the user. And as we are taking window, it is going to be more unpredictable, and this scheme will be portable and robust as well. So these are the strengths of this scheme. I'm not going to the details of this number generator scheme. This is the code to generate this number, 32-bit, and as well as any decimal numbers also. But one problem we can find is there are 1000 RMPs. So the rule is having 1000 numbers inside it. It is very difficult to take care of all these numbers. So our solution is we take the sibling 0, that is the first 10 numbers, and using that 10 numbers as our you can think of it as just like a seed to generate the whole number. So our 1000 decimal number string is just like 100 such permutation, and we are taking only the cyclic permutation of the initial permutation. Now, while choosing those permutation, we have to make sure that it is satisfying the properties we have already shown. So this is a simple scheme to make sure that our CA is selected by using this first 10 bits. This is going to be as powerful as the scheme offers to you. So it is going to be like it has large cycle length, which is going to be asymmetric configuration space implemented inside it, Also, there will be no equilateral triangles, no symmetry inside it. All this will be implemented if we just follow this simple scheme, just like it is only a small code. But success, obviously, it will depend upon the initial permutation that is given as a seed. If we take it efficiently, we can guarantee that our scheme will be successful. Also, we can do a simple check. We can check whether our scheme, even if you're using it as a parent, you can check whether our scheme is offering this non-visibility of trivial configuration and no fixed point attractor, no non-trivial fixed point attractor in general. If this is there, then we can go for applying this for PRNGs. Now let us compare the output generated by the scheme with the existing PRNGs. This is the empirical test result. So we are taking only here 16 rules I have chosen, and for all these 16 rules, this is the result. This is with some random seeds. This is the space-time diagram using this seed. All 0 with 1. And you can see clearly that there is no patterns. No equilateral triangles, no symmetry, no large triangle. So this, if we just avoid this first part where it is still initializing the system, you can understand that the system is actually very random. So this is the ranking of the PRNGs. This was existing ranking that I have already shown you. Now, if we incorporate our CA inside it, how it is behaving at least at par with the SFMT64. Now we do another analysis. We just take these two CAs and compare with both with DieHard and NIST. NIST, all of the tests are passing here. So we are taking test T01 and DieHard, and we are using 1000 seeds for 1000 random seeds that are generated by using RAND for both of them and checking how they behave. You can see that our PRNGs are performing even slightly better than the SFMT PRNGs. So at least we can claim that our CA-based PRNGs has the potentiality to be as powerful as the best PRNGs developed by these complicated algorithms of LFSR or any other existing techniques. But still there are some open problems, just like still some of the tests which are not passed by the SFMT also, those are failed for our CAs also. You can see just here you can see if we take 7 as a seed, it is passing for SFMT, it is passing out of 15 only 11 tests. Similarly, it is for our rule also. So there is some tests which are not passed for even the best generator. So how to make our system fool all kind of empirical tests? Even if one empirical test is there which is able to detect it non-randomness, our system should not be declared as random, as a perfect random number generator. So our target can be how to fool all empirical tests, then how to make our system cryptographically secure, and also I have used the decimal CA. So decimal CA has a problem that it is difficult to implement in hardware. So how to make a secure PRNG which is implementable in hardware. These are the open problems. These are the sum of the bibliography. Okay, thank you for listening and questions. Okay, anyone having any question?
Okay. I have a question, Kamalika.
Yes, sir.
So you are saying that all the generators, maybe the test one, SLM, etc. There exists some test, okay, which can capture non-randomness of the generators.
Hmm.
Okay, so in that sense, so the numbers are not random.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if there is at least one which can understand, it can capture this one.
Yes, sir.
So in that sense, they are not random, no? So
Yes, sir.
all the so we have more I mean the powerful testers. Okay, so if we consider the power of tester, no generator exists, right? Which can fool the testers, right?
Yes, sir. So testers are still now testers are more powerful than our generators.
Okay. So do you have any idea that uh, how can you fool all the generators? So what you are doing here, you are choosing cleverly some rules. Okay, so this is your case. The for the other people, for example, SMMT, I mean the Martian Twister group, they are using the LFSR. So they are taking several polynomials and designing seven kind of LFSRs and some techniques they have incorporated. Based on that they want they try to fool that one. So do you have a theoretical idea? Any comment that how can you fool all the testers, or is it at all possible to fool the any kind of tester which exists today, or maybe the testers which will be developed tomorrow?
Okay, maybe we can think of like there is whatever is going to be developed tomorrow. Regarding that, I have no comment at all, because if we develop something which is powerful to fool all existing random number testers, then maybe they will use this knowledge to develop something which is more powerful than this. So this competition will continue. But well, I think it is possible to at least uh, fool the existing random number test base, because in that case we have to look inside the generator that tester itself to understand how it is detecting the non-randomness, and then we have to uh, improvise our system to make it to specifically designed to fool that test. So we have to go inside the system, and then we can use it to fool that knowledge to fool itself. That
Okay.
is how we can use our existing random number test base to beat that. But regarding the future, I don't know. Maybe they will also use our information to make like detect non-randomness in it. So this competition will continue.
So this your comment immediately raises another question that
Yes.
do you have any comment on developing a new kind of tester? So these tests, be it diehard, be it test 201, BI, be it NIST, NIST. So all are statistical tests, right? And one in interesting testing technique you talked about, I mean, which is basically used by the CA community. That is the space-time diagram. Very good. And
Yeah.
Wolfram used this one space-time diagram. Anyway, so apart from that one, the rest of the statistical testing technique. So do you have, I mean, do you have any comment on this that tomorrow can we develop a new kind of testing technique? See, finally, the system is not chaotic. I mean, if we go by the definition of chaotic system, your solar automaton is deterministic. I mean, the finite deterministic. So patterns,
Will be there.
yeah. patterns are not unpredictable in that sense, right? So theoretically, you can't say it will be unpredictable, right? It's predictable. So there is always, I mean, a technique or a scheme should exist which can capture the non-randomness
Yeah,
of your method,
yeah, but
be it
yeah,
be it CA based, be it LFSR based, be it anything based, right? So what I understand this debate, you know, so test 201 or diehard, you can fool these testers, right? So tomorrow a group of people may generate, I mean, may develop another say tester. Day after tomorrow, another generator can be developed which can fool the new tester. In this way, the game will. So in all the cases, the testers are based on the statistical testing technique. So my question is, I'm also searching this answer. I don't know whether it exists or not. That if we can develop some kind of technique of testing the generators, apart from this statistical testing tools. So do you have any comment on this? It's possible? Is it possible, or anything like this?
maybe it is possible. Maybe we can look into the property of chaos to understand it, but I have no idea how it can be done. I'm interested to know how it can be done from you. It's if you are doing that.
No, I'm not doing it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And yeah, I believe this space-time diagram are more efficient because here also I was showing this figure. I guess you can see it. So all these generators that we are showing that these are at least they are passing lots of tests, but still you can see that from the space-time diagram itself there are some patterns. So yeah, so we can visualize our from although from human brain we can't see everything, but still this thing at least if some patterns are there, this is easily visualizable. So you can see. Maybe some other way will be there to test it. I'm interested to know.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question?
Yeah. Please, no question.
Thank you, Dr. Bhattacharya, for your wonderful talk. Now we are ending today's workshop and we will meet up again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.